Okay, so look over this and make sure you understand everything you need to know for the test. I'm going to jump around through examples of these different things just based on what I've seen you guys do on the review so far and what I saw on your assignments. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first we are doing evaluating expressions. So hi to everybody that just joined. Okay, we are evaluating expressions here. This is the first thing that you'll see on your test. Okay, this Addison, this review session will last under an hour. If you need to leave at any time, that's fine. You can leave and come back. Okay, everybody with me on evaluate expressions. We have the expression x plus 30 minus 2x. Now this is called an expression, remember, because it doesn't have an equal sign. This is like the question you'll see on the test. Okay, so with this expression, we're asked to evaluate it for x equals 20. So all that means is that we are plugging in 20 every time we see an x. The one thing that I want to remind you guys is when you're plugging in a value for x, do it in parentheses so you can keep track of all the signs. Okay, so we have x plus 30, so 20 plus 30 minus 2 times 20. Okay, you guys are doing good so far. Pull out a calculator. If you don't have a calculator, you might want to get one now. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going through this. You guys do it on your own if you can. 20 plus 30 minus 2 times 20 is 40. So 20 plus 30 is 50 minus 40, and looks like you guys came up with the answer 10. Okay, not so bad. These are some easy first questions on the test, hopefully. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. You guys go ahead and try to solve this one on your own as I'm working through it. Once again, don't forget to plug in the values for x in parentheses so you can keep track of the signs. So this time we're plugging in a -4 for x. Okay, so this is the part that some of you might have been confused on. Remember, it's a -12 minus x. So I have -12 minus, and then in my parentheses, what my x is, a -4. Looks like we have some differing opinions on the answer. Let's see what we get. A -4 times a -4 is a positive 16, minus 12. And then when we minus a -4, that's the same thing as adding. So if you see a minus a negative, turn it into a positive and save yourself some headache there. Okay, 16 minus 12 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. Okay, so all those people that said -24, do you see where you went wrong? Is everybody okay with how I got 8 for my answer? Cha. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, if you get it wrong, like if you work it out and you get the wrong answer, then look over my work and make sure you can see where you went wrong. Good job, Addison. Okay, cool, cool. Let's go ahead and move on. So like I said, I think there's 2 or 3 problems like these on your test to start. There are lots of solving equations on your test. Lots and lots. And so I have quite a few examples of solving equations. We're going to get to that last, I think. The next thing that we're going to do is talking about writing equations from story problems. Okay, so you guys are all going to be happier here because the story problem is almost exactly like the one on the test. And so if you pay really close attention to how to do this, you'll be able to do the one on the test. Okay, so stay with me here. Okay, it says Darren and his 2 brothers, Ryan and Sean, all share minutes on a phone plan. Last month they used 400 minutes total. Then it tells us how much each person used. Sean used 3 times as many minutes as Darren. Ryan used 20 minutes less than Darren. How many minutes did Ryan use? Okay, so to figure this out, we're going to write an equation first of all. Megan, holy cow, that was fast. I don't even know if that's right yet. Okay, so first things first, we're going to write the equation. We have 3 brothers, Darren, Ryan, and Sean, and they all use minutes on a phone plan. Man, you guys are fast. If you guys are fast, just pay attention still, okay? They all use minutes on a phone plan, and together they all used 400 minutes total. Okay, so let's keep track of how much each person used. Simon, did you already take the test? Or do you have it open right now? Simon. Okay. So Simon, if you've already taken the Unit 1 test, you can be here. You just can't talk about the test at all. Okay? If you guys have just done the review, that's fine. But if you've done the test, then keep your mouth quiet about what's on it, okay? Okay, so back to the problem. Let's keep track of how many minutes Darren, Ryan, and Sean used. Okay, so does it tell us how many minutes Darren used? No, it doesn't. It only tells me Sean used 3 times as many minutes as Darren, and Ryan used 20 minutes less than Darren. So it doesn't tell me how many minutes Darren used, and so that's what my variable is going to represent. X is going to represent how many minutes Darren used, because that's something that I don't have any information about. So Darren used X minutes. Ryan, let's move on to Ryan. It says Ryan used 20 minutes less than Darren. Okay, so we take however many minutes. Oh, by the way, we're adding all these things together. So we're going to take however many minutes Darren used and subtract 20. And that's how many Ryan used, because he used 20 minutes less than Darren did. Okay, and then finally Sean, to this we'll add how many Sean used. Sean used 3 times as many minutes as Darren. So 3 times Darren's. Okay, so is everybody okay with where I came up with this equation? X plus X minus 20 plus 3X equals 400. Okay. Oh, shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see, X plus X minus 20. I'm a little rusty using this. Okay, so everybody, I think we're okay with where the equation came from. Remember, it's keeping track of the number of minutes each boy used, and we know that the total added up to 400. Okay, so now we need to simplify this side of the equation, and then we'll go ahead and try solving it. Okay, so we have X, and we have another X, and we have 3 X's. Anything with a variable, I can combine those all together. So we have 1x, 2x's, plus 3x's is 5x's. So I combined all the x terms and I came up with 5x. Then I still have this minus 20. This can't be combined with anything else. This all is still equal to the 400 minutes. Okay, now to solve this equation, first thing I want to do is combine with the 0 pair. So this negative 20 needs to go away. So I combine that with 0 pair, which is a positive 20. Okay, so I add 20 on both sides. And that cancels out on this side, so I have 5x equals 420. Okay, my last step here is divide both sides by 5. Everybody pull out a calculator and tell me what you get when you divide 420 by 5. I need to see an answer from everybody. Okay, I hope you actually used a calculator, not just copying everybody. Okay, so we get x equals 84. Okay, now this is where a lot of students are going to make a mistake on the test. Okay, so your ears should be like, oh, Mrs. Scholes, what is it? Okay, this is where you're going to make a mistake on the test if you do make a mistake on this question. The question says, how many minutes did Ryan use? Is the answer 84? Okay, good. You guys are smart. Okay, my answer is not 84 because remember, X is representing how many minutes Darren used, not Ryan. So we have to go back to the problem and see how many minutes Ryan used. It says Ryan used 20 minutes less than Darren. Okay, so we know that Darren used 84 because that's what X was representing. So we do 84 minus 20 because that's how many Ryan used, and that's where everybody's getting 64. Ryan used 64 minutes. Yes. Okay, so we solve for X first because we need to know what X represents. Okay, so X once again represented how many minutes Darren used. And then once we figure out what X equals, then we can answer the question, how many minutes did Ryan use? So make sure you're paying attention to what the question is asking, what you're actually finding, and make sure you're answering the question that I ask. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about this problem that I can help with? So if you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat box. Okay, our next topic will be absolute values or inequalities. I can't decide. Okay, so Gabby, are you asking about how I combined this x right here and this x? Okay, so I have an x plus an x, so these combine to be 2x. And then I have 3x right here. So if I combine all of the x's in this problem, then I have 2x's plus 3x's. That's where I came up with 5x's. Okay, everybody, I think everybody's mostly good. Okay, we're going to move on to inequalities. If I've left anybody behind, then you can come back and talk to me during my office hours, okay? Okie dokie. Inequalities. Okay, so inequalities is something that you did the end of last week in IXL, which is everybody's new favorite way to do assignments, right? There are 2 inequalities to solve on your test. Okay, so 2 problems with inequalities on your test. You won't have to worry about the number line though on your test. You just simply solve. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. When we're solving inequalities, everybody pay close attention now. When we solve inequalities, we solve it exactly like we do regular equations, with one exception. Can people chime in here and tell me what's the one rule I need to keep in mind when I'm solving inequalities? What's the one thing that makes this different than solving a regular equation? Okay, some of you are answering questions I haven't asked yet. I see 2 people, Abby and Kate, Emma. Kiana, very good. Okay, so when we are solving inequalities, you need to keep track. If you ever multiply or divide by a negative sign, actually, let's say, I'm trying not to erase. Flip the sign. Okay, if you multiply or divide by a negative at any point when you are solving the inequality, then you flip the sign. Okay, that's the only thing we need to remember when we're solving inequalities. Other than that, this is exactly the same as solving an equation. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. You guys can go ahead and start solving this on your own too. If you know what to do, then go ahead and try solving it on your own. If you don't know what to do, then just watch. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we need to get x by itself. And so that means I need to get rid of this minus 11. So I do that by combining it with its zero pair, which is adding 11. And I have to do that to both sides to keep everything balanced. When I add 11 on this side, those things cancel out because it's a zero pair. And I'm left with negative 4x is greater than 17 plus 11 is 28. Okay, my final step for getting x by itself is to get rid of this negative 4. And the negative 4 is being multiplied by the x. So to get rid of it, I do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. And whatever I do on one side, I have to do on both sides. Okay, so negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. So I have 1x. 28 divided by negative 4, you guys have all found, I think, is negative 7. Now I divided by a negative, so that means my sign has to change directions. So it went from being greater than to less than. So I have x is less than negative 7. Very good, very good. You guys are pretty on top of this, I'd say. Amber, I don't know where the z came from, but I'm guessing you meant x. And make sure, good, okay, yeah. And make sure it's negative 7. Yep, typo. I get that quite often. Okay, now if you guys want to check your answer on inequalities, which you can do, it's a good idea to check your answer all the time. If you want to check your answer, just plug in any number for x that's less than negative 7 and make sure that the equation is true. So, wait, oops, it's supposed to be an open circle, huh? So my solution is anything less, x is less than negative 7. So say if I plugged in a 10, a negative 10 for x up here, I just want to make sure that when I plug in a negative 10 for x, that it's still greater than 17. And that's how I can check my answer. Okay, okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the second problem. Okay, so go ahead and solve it if you know how. Okay, the first step is to get rid of this plus 8. So I'm going to do that by subtracting 8 on both sides because that's the zero pair. A positive 8 and a negative 8 combined to be 0, which is perfect. That's what I wanted. X divided by 2 greater than or equal to negative 13 minus 8, negative 21. Is that right? Yeah, it is. It just looked weird. Okay, so we have x divided by 2 is greater than or equal to negative 21. Now I need to get rid of this 2 here. X is being divided by 2. So to get rid of the 2, I do the opposite of dividing, which is multiplying. And I have to do that to both sides to keep everything balanced. Those cancel out to be 1, so I just have my 1x over here. And negative 21 times 2 is negative 42. And what direction is my sign facing? Is it greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to? Okay, good. Those people that answered so far are right. My sign does not change directions because I never divided or multiplied by a negative number. I multiplied by a positive 2. That didn't count, so my sign stayed the same direction. Okay, Gabby, I see that you are like raising and lowering your hand. I think you weren't here when I said that I'm really bad at answering those raising your hand questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and just chat it in the chat box and I'll see it. So when I do those types of equations, I was taught to draw a line down the middle of the equal sign. It seems to help me, so is that okay? Yeah, definitely. That is totally fine. That's a good idea, actually. Okay, so that's solving inequalities. Negative 42 is not on my number line, so I'm not going to do it. But if you wanted to check your answer, you could go ahead and plug in a number that's greater than or equal to negative 42 and make sure that it still works in this equation, and that's how you can check your answer. Okay, next one, solving equations with absolute value signs. I'm glad you're all here for this because that was a rough assignment yesterday and Monday. Wow. Yeah, that was a lot of grading to get those through. So I'm glad you're all here. Let's go over these to make sure that you know how to do these on your test. Okay, and I'm going to actually do this one first and this one second. So if you are working on these, we're doing the second one first. Okay, these are not super difficult. I think you guys, if you're watching the lesson videos, for the people that did make mistakes on this assignment, I think you just kind of didn't catch on to what was going on in the lesson videos. So pay close attention now and you'll see it's not too bad. Okay, so we have the absolute value of 3x plus 3 minus 6 equals 18. Okay, so the first step when solving equations with absolute values, the very first step that most people made the mistake on is that you want to isolate the values in the absolute value. Okay, when I say isolate, I mean you just want whatever's in the absolute value by itself on that side of the equal sign. Okay, so right now I have 3x plus 3 in the absolute value, but I also have this minus 6. So it's not isolated right now. I need to get rid of this minus 6. How do I get rid of the minus 6, everybody? Thank you. Add 6. Good. I will add 6 on both sides. So I get, my absolute value stays the same, 3x plus 3. These cancel out. 18 plus 6, 24. Okay. So right now I have the absolute value isolated. Can everybody see that? It's isolated right now because that's the only thing on the left side of the equal sign is the absolute value part of the equation. Okay, so once I get the absolute value part of the equation by itself, then I make the two different equations. Okay, so the absolute value of 3x plus 3 needs to equal 24. So on the inside of this, that means if I have 3x plus 3 equals 24, the absolute value of 24 is 24. Or I could have the absolute value of 3x plus 3 equal negative 24, because the absolute value of negative 24 is also 24. So that's where my two equations come from. So I have 3x plus 3 equals positive 24, and I have 3x plus 3 equals negative 24. And yes, Megan, these are our absolute value equations. There's two of these on your test. Okay, so now we just have two equations to solve. 3x plus 3 equals 24. Let's do this one first. subtract 3 on both sides. I'll do these kind of quicker. So we have 3x equals 21. Divide by 3 on both sides. Cancels, and I'm left with x equals 7. Okay, now on the other equation, once again, same steps. I'm still subtracting 3 on both sides. That cancels out, so I'm left with 3x equals negative 27. Divide by 3 again, leaves me with x equals negative 9. Good luck, Donna, and thanks for coming for a minute. Okay, so on the test, there are 2 answers to the absolute value equations. Okay, so if you only get one answer, just know that that's wrong. And Gavin and AJ, whatever this Albert Einstein talk is, let's kind of calm down with that a little bit. Okay, so Megan asks, or Amber asked, how would you check this? Megan, how would you type this answer? You don't have to type this answer on the test. You just have to check the box that has x equals 7 and x equals negative 9. So don't worry about typing it out. How would you check your answer, though? That's a good question. To check your answer, you just plug in x equals 7 and x equals 9 back into the original equation. So I can check the x equals 7 really fast. And then minus 6, and we want to make sure this equals 18. So you have the absolute value of 21 plus 3 minus 6. We want to make sure that's 18. Yes, Megan, all absolute values have 2 answers unless it's like the 2 answers are 0, both 0. Okay, 21 plus 3 is 24. Minus 6 equals 18. The absolute value of 24 is 24. Minus 6, 18 equals 18. So that's how I would check my answer. So that's how I know the first one's right. If you guys wanted to check the second one, you could. You'd just plug in a negative 9 right here. Okay, I'm going to let you guys figure out how to do that, though. Hopefully you can take it from there. Okay, so let's do the second problem now. This one looks a little bit different because we have this 3 that's being multiplied in front of our absolute value. And this is another thing that I saw mistakes on the assignment number 12. So pay close attention so you know how to do this. I can tell you right now that there's a test question that has a number being multiplied by your absolute value like this. Okay, so once again, the first step is to get the absolute value isolated by itself on one side of the equal sign. So that means the plus 2 and the 3 out in front need to go away. So let's get rid of the plus 2 first. You always want to get rid of things that you add or subtract first. So we'll combine it with its 0 pair, which is a negative 2. That's 0 equals 21. Looks like you guys are doing good. Keep going. Now, to get rid of this 3, the mistake that I've seen for most people is they think that I'm distributing this 3. So they multiply everything inside the absolute values by 3. And that is not what we want to do on these types. In this case, we're seeing that 3 is being multiplied by everything inside the absolute value. So if I want to get rid of the 3, I do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. And I do that on both sides to keep it all balanced. Okay, so I have 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that just leaves me with this, 4x minus 1 equals 7. Okay, looks like a few of you are getting a little off topic in the chat, so please pay attention. Thanks, Gavin. Okay, so now I have my absolute value isolated. Okay, so once it's isolated like this, then I make the 2 equations. So I have 4x minus 1 equals 7. and 4x minus 1 equals -7. Okay, I want everybody to grab a pencil or whatever you want to do and solve both of these equations for me. Tell me what x equals when you do 4x minus 1 equals 7, and tell me what x equals when you do 4x minus 1 equals -7. Corbin found the answer a while ago. Thank you. We will check to make sure he's right. I think you've just copied and pasted that a couple times, huh? Yeah, that takes some time. Okay, Addison, why don't you type out what your question is on this while I work on solving it. Looks like I'm getting a few of you with your answers so far. Okay, so I have two equations to solve. So I'm going to start with 4x minus 1 equals 7. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides to start with. That makes these ones cancel out, and I'm left with 4x equals 8. Then divide both sides by 4. And we get very small x equals 2. Okay, and on the other one, same steps. I'm still adding 1 to both sides. Those will cancel, so I'm left with 4x equals -6. Then, once again, divide both sides by 4, and I'm left with x equals -6/4, which is, what is that, 1.5, or -3/2 works better, I think. So you could type -6/4, that's correct. You could do -3/2, or you could say -1.5. All of those are correct answers. They're all the same thing. So Addison, here are the two equations that we solved. Okay, so I just made it into two equations because when I'm solving absolute value equations, when I take the absolute value of 7, so let's say inside here, what's the absolute value of 7? It's 7, right? Now tell me, what's the absolute value of -7? Okay, the absolute value of -7 is also 7. So inside my parentheses, 4x minus 1 could equal 7, or it could equal -7, and I'd still get my answer of 7. Okay, so that's why I make two equations. I set 4x minus 1 equal to a +7, and I set 4x minus 1 equal to a -7, because when I take the absolute value of either of those, I get +7. Okay. So those were the steps. Once again, isolate the absolute value part of the equation, create two equations, solve both the equations. The fourth step is to check your answer, which you should do, but I ran out of room, and so we're not going to do that. But I did show you how to do it on the first one. Okay, hopefully that made sense. If anybody has any more questions with absolute values, that's something to come and talk to me about during office hours. Okay, good. Let's go back to next. We did inequalities. Do you guys want to solve equations, or how many solutions do equations have? Solve equations, or how many solutions? Solve equations. How many solutions? It looks about equal. Addison maybe tipped it over into the solution side. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do this. How many solutions does the equation have? Because in the process of answering how many solutions does the equation have, we also have to solve. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. Okay, not that you should kill birds. Okay, let's change to green just because I feel like it. Okay, so to figure out how many solutions an equation has, the process for this is we go ahead and start solving it. And then once we start solving it, it becomes more and more apparent how many solutions we're going to have. And so as we get closer to our solution, I'll help you see what that looks like. But the process is we just go ahead and start solving. So let's go ahead and work on the first one here. Okay, so when I see this equation, I have 1/4 times the quantity 20x plus 8 equals 5x minus 10. Now, I want to simplify this before I start solving. So the first one I'm going to simplify is get rid of the parentheses. So everything inside of the parentheses gets multiplied by this 1/4. Okay, so, and the good thing about this is when I multiply by a fourth, it's the same thing as dividing by 4. So you can either type in 1 divided by 4 times 20 on your calculator, or you can just do 20 divided by 4. So on my calculator, I get 20 divided by 4 is 5x, and 1/4 times 8 is 2. If you're not sure where I came up with this, then make sure you are using a calculator to check my work. Okay, so right now we have 5x plus 2 equals 5x minus 10. Can anybody see so far how many solutions this is going to have just by what I have so far? What do you guys think? How many solutions? Does it have one solution, no solutions, or infinitely many solutions? Corbin thinks he knows. Amber thinks she knows. Megan doesn't know. Okay. Looks like you guys say no solutions for the most part. Okay, so you guys would be right. There are no solutions to this problem. The way that I can see that, I can see it right now because I can't have 5x add 2 to it and have that equal 5x and subtract 10 from it. Okay, so if I start with a number and add 2, and I start with the same number and subtract 10, that's never going to equal each other. If you can't see at this point that it's no solution, then you would just keep solving. So to keep solving, I'd want to get all the x's together. So I want to move these x's to the other side. So I'll subtract 5x on both sides. And when I subtract 5x on both sides, they both cancel out, and I'm left with 2 equals negative 10. 2 does not equal negative 10. That's ridiculous. I won't stand for that in my class. And so that's how we know there's no solution. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the second one now. Everybody go ahead and start solving this and see if you can come up with an answer for this one. How many solutions does the second problem have? Does it have one? Does it have many? Or does it have no solutions? Once again, the process to figure out how many solutions it has is to start solving it. Okay, so we have 2 people with an answer so far. This one's kind of a big one, so I'll let you take your time on it. Okay, looks like I've heard from maybe half of you who say it has one solution. And you are correct, and let's see why. Okay, so if I go ahead and start solving this, I want to simplify on the left side first, because on the left side I can see I have 7 x's and I have 2 x's. I can combine those things together. 7x plus 2x gives me 9x, and then I still have a minus 3. And this all equals 3x plus 15. Okay, so this is simplified. This is looking pretty, so I can go ahead and start solving it. So if I keep solving, I want to get all the x's together first. So I'll move the 3 x's over to the other side by combining it with the 0 pair. These ones cancel each other out, and I'm left with 6x minus 3 equals 15. Now I want all the numbers on the other side, so this negative 3 needs to move to the other side by combining it with the 0 pair. Those cancel out, and I'm left with 6x equals 18. And divide both sides by 6, and I'm left with x equals 3. So obviously, I have one solution here, right? Just one answer, x equals 3. That's the only number that I can plug in for x into this equation and have it work out to be true. That is the only number in the whole wide world that will work. So one solution. Does everybody understand how I solved this problem and how I came up with the one solution? And by the way, hi Callie, I haven't seen you here yet. Glad you can make it. Okay, let's move on to the third one then. Yeah, if we went from no solutions to one solution, you guys are probably right, there's probably infinitely many solutions. But let's make sure we know why this last one, the answer is going to be infinitely many solutions. So once again, the process is we just want to solve it. Good job, Corbin. You're like reading my mind. So we have 8x plus 10 on this side. And on this side, I just noticed I wanted to clean it up a little bit because I have a 4 and a positive 6. And I can combine those things and make this look a little bit cleaner. A 4 and a 6 combined to be 10. So I still have 8x, and then 4 and 6 combines to be a positive 10. So I end up with 8x plus 10 equals 8x plus 10. When I have the exact same thing on both sides of the equal sign, that means there are infinitely many solutions. That means I can plug in any number in the whole world that I want for x, and it will work out to be true. I can plug in x equals 1, I can plug in x equals 0, I can plug in x equals 53, anything I want, and it'll be true. So there's infinitely many solutions for this third one. Okay, does anybody have any questions on how many solutions equations have? Yes, Megan, when both sides are exactly the same, it has infinitely many solutions. And you'll notice if I wanted to keep solving this, I would subtract 8x on both sides, and I'd be left with 10 equals 10. So that's the exact same thing on both sides. I could keep solving. I could subtract 10 on both sides and get 0 equals 0. So I keep getting the same thing on both sides. So infinitely many solutions. Okie dokie. I really don't want to go over an hour, so we're going to spend the last 9 minutes solving equations. I'm going to choose this one, this page. Okay, let's do this page. Here's problem number 1, problem number 2, problem number 3. Okay, I want everybody to choose problem number 1, number 2, or number 3. and solve it for me. Okay, and then I'm going to randomly choose one to go over, and it's going to be your job to tell me what your answer was. Okay, so choose problem number 1, number 2, or number 3. Choose number 3 if you're really brave. I'll ask you for your answer to it when I do that problem. Okay, so I'll give you maybe 30 more seconds. Okay, like I said on the test, the majority of the questions are just going to be solving equations just like these. There's probably 6 or 7 or 8 of them. But once you get some practice with them and once you get the hang of it, then they're not so bad. Okay, so hopefully everybody chose one to solve. I'm going to pick number 3 to do first. So if you solve number 3, then pay attention. Why don't you, for those people, well, go ahead. Who chose number 3 to solve? Looks like Corbin and Emily. Who else chose number 3? Okay, Kate did it too. Emily, Corbin, Kate. Anybody else? And Megan. Okay, so we're going to check your work. Do you guys want to share what you got for your answer, or if you got one yet? I was going to say it's kind of a long one. So if you didn't get one yet, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start on this one. Megan, if you come up with an answer, then you can go ahead and type it in. Okay, good, good. Okay, so first thing that you want to do when you are solving equations is you want to simplify both sides as much as you can first. So to simplify both sides, I see the parentheses and I want to get rid of those ugly things. So to get rid of parentheses, everything gets multiplied by whatever number is on the outside. In this case, it's a positive 4. So everything inside the parentheses gets multiplied by positive 4. So 4 times negative 3x is a negative 12x. 4 times 1 is a positive 4. And then everything else stays the same. Okay, also to simplify, on this right side, I can see that I have 2 terms that have x's in them. So rather than listing x terms twice, I just want to combine them. So I have a negative 2x and a negative 12x. Negative 2 minus 12, negative 14x's. So I have negative 14x, and then I still have plus 4 equals everything over here still. Okay, this is looking simpler. I like that, so I'm going to go ahead and start solving. It looks like I have, well, let's move all the x's to the left side. So I want all the x's to the left. So I add 14x on both sides. When I do that, I get 6x plus 14. What is that? 8, right? 8x minus 20. Those cancel out and I get a equals 4 over here still. Add 20 to both sides. I'm working on getting x by itself. So I have 8x's equals 24. The last step is to divide both sides by 8. And 24 divided by 8 is 3. So congratulations to Megan, Emily, Corbin, and who else did that one? Kate. Did I say Kate? You guys said x equals 3, and you were right. Very good. Now, does anybody have any questions on any of the steps that I did to solve this problem? You can go ahead and say like what line you had a question on, what step it was. Any questions? Okay. Okay, we're doing okay. Let's go ahead and solve number 2 now. Who chose the second one to solve? Okay, Abigail did. Anybody else? Is it just Abby? Whew. Megan did both, okay. Okay, so do you guys want to share what your answer was to number 2 now for me? And we will go ahead and check. Okay, so if you chose number 2, go ahead and tell me what we think that we got, and then we'll solve together. Okay, 2 of you agree that x is equal to 7. Okay, let's go ahead and solve it. So this one, there isn't any simplifying to do because it looks pretty simple as it is. So let's go ahead and solve. I'm actually going to move all the x's first by adding 4x to both sides. Oh, I totally didn't even see that was an x. I thought that was a different number. Let's see. Oh, I don't even know where an eraser is. Okay, so I'm crossing out. Okay, so right here we had an x and a minus 3x. So if we have 1x and we take 3 away, then we have negative 2x. This is equal to 14 minus 4x. So we did have some simplifying to do. I apologize. Okay, so now let's go ahead and combine all the x's together. I want to move the 4x still. So I'll add 4x on both sides. So over here it's going to cancel each other out, but on the other side I have a negative 2x plus 4x is 2x equals 14. And then both sides get divided by 2. X equals 14 divided by 2 is 7. Okay. Did you see where you got 2.3? How that was wrong, Megan? Okay. You also got 7, so that was good. You got the right answer in there too. Good. Okay, and finally, problem number 1. If you solved the first one, go ahead and share with me what you got, and we will check your answers. Okay, Kate answered. She got x equals 3. Negative 6. Negative 6 for another one. Well, Kate, I think you're being outnumbered here. Let's go ahead and check to see how we solve this one. Okay, good idea. Okay, so this one we don't have any simplifying to do. So now we can just go ahead and solve by getting all the x's together and all of our constants together, just the plain numbers. I'm going to do something a little different. I can see that I have 7 x's on the right, and that is more than 6x on the left. So I'm actually going to move all of the x's to the right side by subtracting 6x on both sides. Okay, so maybe you subtracted 7x from both sides to move them all over to the left, and that's fine. You'll still get the same answer. I'm just choosing to subtract 6x and move them all into the right side so that my answer looks a little prettier. So 6x minus 6x is 0. And I'm left with 7 equals 13. And then I have 7x minus 6x. 7 minus 6 is 1. So I just have an x over here. Then I want to get x by itself, so this 13 needs to go. So I subtract 13 on both sides. On this side, that cancels each other out because that's a 0 pair. And 7 minus 13 is -6 equals x. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so -6 equals x equals -6, both the same answer. So there we go, x equals -6. Okay, so Kate, we're all good with -6, it looks like. Does anybody have any questions on solving equations? Any of the ones that I did anyways? Okay. Solving equations, it's going to take some practice to get really good at it. So if you struggle with solving equations, make sure you're doing all the attempts on your review that you can, so you are getting as much practice with it as you can. Okay, that is all I'm going to do because I don't want to go any longer than an hour. So thank